the first thing you need to do is find the sounds. You need to use the document that we've provided. All we've got is a kick, an open hat and a clap. And then we're going to add a piano. So, Piano V by Arturia. I've got the American Grand. Let's have a listen to it. I like the sound of it. It is dry. I'm not going to add any reverbs or delays to it yet. I just want to get the mix right, first of all, before I start adding those. Because for me, they are a part of the mix, the reverbs and the delays. And I want them to work with all the other sounds in the mix. So I'll wait till I've got the other sounds in the mix. Let's ask the questions when adding a new sound. Have I gain staged? Okay, so I put everything to -12 as per my gain staging video. So fader at 0, no plugins on, and I'm at -15.6. So I want to boost it in volume about 3 dB. So I'll go to -10. And you always do this at the synth or clip on the audio clip. So -12.2, that's close enough. And I know now that when I do this to every single sound, I've done it to the kick, I've done it to the clap, I've done it to the hat. If I've got the fader at 0, no plugins, and gain stage it to -12, my mix isn't going to have any digital distortion. And it's also going to give me the right amount of feed for my analog emulations. Is it genre appropriate? It's definitely genre appropriate. I can hear it, a lot more reverb, and I know it's there. And it's not exactly M1, but I don't think that a lot of the Sonny Fodera stuff and them kind of people, it is M1. I think it is a different kind of piano that they use. Have I done frequency and character recognition? Let's do a quick one on this. I'm just listening to certain frequencies. I don't want it to be too wide. That's about fine. Okay, so I know that the bottom of the sound's around 200, but it goes down to about 100. And remember, you're teaching yourself, every time you do this, you're teaching yourself the frequencies. And okay, so the body of the bottom of the piano is around 200 hertz. So I need to be mindful of anything else that's going to be there that might take away from the body of it or how it's interacting with it. For example, the top of the bass. Let's do that again. Okay, that could be possibly a bit muddy, so I'm just going to do a little cut. I'm going to bring it down so I know that that's possible mud. Carry on. Keep going. So I know we're getting towards the main character of the piano now, 1200 there. And you might see that most of them are around G. So I know the top of this piano is around 6K. So what this is telling me, just by even looking at it, that it's obviously quite a mid-rangey sound. From 800 to 3K are the key characters of this sound, okay? And then the top of it, the twinkle of it, the tinkle of it even, is around 6K. So I don't really want to be losing that either, because this is the number one. This is lead number one, okay? And I know that the bottom end of it is around 200 hertz, really. There might be a bit of mud around 200. There might be a bit of something around 500 we don't like, but I wouldn't do that at this stage, because them frequencies in one track might be mud and in another track might be body. So I don't touch anything just yet. But what I might do is a bit of a low cut, just to take out any lower frequencies that I don't really need. And again, I'd use my ears. In fact, I might use a shelf. I'm just listening to the lower frequencies in it. Okay, I could hear it taking out those frequencies there. Now, if you're struggling to hear that, use metric AB. It'll just help you tune in a little bit more without all the noise of all the other frequencies in there. But what I've done is I've mentally tuned myself in to go, okay, this sound, the key sound is between 800 and 4K. The twinkles around, the tinkles around 6K, the top of it, the high frequencies. The low frequencies, which is the fundamentals of the body, around 200. It's in G. I know I'm going to do some chord changes, but you know, they're the general frequencies of this sound. And then just the more you do this, the more you're going to remember the frequencies straight away. Like, so now I don't need to do frequency and character recognition. I'm only doing this as example's sake for you, because I can hear straight away. I can tune straight into those frequencies. And this exercise on every single sound you put into a mix, okay, is key. And it will train you to be able to use your ears. When people say use your ears, you know, you have to train your ears, and this is how I find the easiest to do it if you're a self-taught producer like most of you are. So we've recognized the frequency of this sound. What's the character of the sound? Okay, let's have a listen to it. Okay, so the character of it is it's got quite a sharp attack. And the transients around the frequencies we were talking about, you know, but I still want them bottom frequencies to hit a little bit more. I've got the mids, all mids, you know, so from 800 to 3K. And that's what's going to be the key elements in the track. I don't want to hide them transients. What's the body of the sound like? Well, the body of the sound is quite thick, it's quite dense, and it doesn't feel thin. It feels like it's got body. I think the bottom end's lacking a little bit, but I've got a feeling that the bass is going to take over that. So I don't need to worry about that. And I wouldn't start worrying about that yet. You know, I just want to get the best out of this sound. Lead one. Okay, what's the tail of it like? Well, it's nice. It's leading into the next note every single time. It's not too long. The release isn't too long. The notes aren't too long, so that it's affecting the transient of the next note, because we want that ding, 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 ding. We want that as much as possible. This is our number one lead, so we want the transients to cut through as much as possible. You know, it's a great sound. Okay, what's the tail of it like? Perfect. What's the tone of it? Well, it's a house piano. It doesn't sound too lo-fi and it doesn't sound too hi-fi. Identify it. It's not too shiny, you know, and it's not too dull. It's not too distorted. but it's not too clean. It's clean, it's nearer to the clean side of it. Try and identify the tone as well as the frequencies, the attack, the body and the tail, because the tone's going to change lots. The more you add into the track and whenever you add an effect. And the tone of something is super important. So frequency and character recognition. What are the low frequencies of the sound? The mid frequencies, the high frequencies. What's the attack of the sound, the transient of the sound? What's the body of the sound and the tail or the release of the sound? And what's the tone of the sound? How would you describe it? Going to ask this on every item that you put into the mix. How is it affecting the other sounds in the mix? Well, we've not got anything else in the mix right now, so we don't need to worry about that question. But we are going to ask this question for every other sound that we put in. Identify the stereo field and the depth of field. Well, this is the lead sound, so I want it to be forwards in the mix. Okay, let's have a listen. And I want it to be wide because I like a wide piano, so let's have a listen to it. It's quite wide, but it's not too wide. I might be able to look at that later on. But for now, I think I've got a really good sound. So it is forward in the mix. I could possibly make it more forward, but we have to see. We can't tell you that until we've got everything else in the mix. It's all about its relationship to everything else, how forward it is. Does it have the wow factor? It's a great house piano. It's not like a tech house lead that I need it to be different to everything else. It's a good, solid piano. So yeah, it has got the wow factor. Is it a 10 out of 10 sample, sound, recording choice, or can you find a better option? Right now, I think this is a solid piano. That might change in the track. I might need to add something else to it. I might need to change the sound, but I'm working everything to it, so I'm going to doubt that very much. Do you need a supporting sound? Not right now, but I may do later on. Check mono compatibility. Okay, I don't lose any volume when it goes to mono, which is great. And when I go from mono to stereo, it doesn't sound like there's any phase issues either. Check phase correlation. Okay, well, it doesn't seem the best, but it is above 0, and things like pianos and stuff like that are quite phasey a lot of the time. Why is this sounding stereo? Is it two pianos playing at the same time? Is it two different microphones? When you've got two different microphones, which is what I think this is, whenever you've got two sounds that are very similar, the same as each other, there's going to be the possibility of creating phase issues. But in this case, it isn't too bad. And my ears are telling me it's okay as well. Look at the stereo image while I'm here. Okay. Can we adapt the audio or MIDI length and velocities, the ADSR or the synth to make it fit the mix better? Well, right now, this isn't the piano that we're going to use, but later on in the track, we may do that. And of course, we want to get as good as possible here. And if you're just starting off, these things are important even now. As I said before, the length of the notes right now are working fine. And it's a great sound. So I'm not too worried about that. Are there any cross rhythms or melodies? Well, there's nothing else in the track, so no. What lead number is it? It's lead number 1. Fantastic. So that's the piano. Now, we're going to look at lead number 2. Now, what will be lead number 2? Well, I think it's going to be the bass. And I think it's going to be the bass because the bass is going to be on its own at the beginning of the track and at the end of the track probably. And this kind of music, the sound of the bass is really important, okay? So I think that's probably going to be lead number 2. So I'll find a bass, and a lot of the time with the piano, I want a sound that complements the piano. So I just took the notes from the piano and just copied them. Let's have a listen to that. Okay, I would have done all the other questions, gain staging, mono compatibility, all that kind of stuff, frequency character recognition. You know, I love this bass sound. I really like it. Again, it's an Arturia plugin. It's a preset I've messed around with on the SEMV. And yeah, it's really good. I like the tone of it. I like the top of it. I think it's really, really good. And I think even with the character of the top end, it works with the bottom of the bass. So let's listen to that. I like it, but the notes seem a bit short, so let's just lengthen them, because this doesn't have any release on it, but I do like the sound of this. Okay, so let's have a listen to that bottom end. Sounds great in the mix. Okay, so I like it. I like the sound of the bottom end. I would then A/B this to my references to see how mine sounds compared to theirs, taking in mind the key of the track might be different. And then I have to ask myself the questions, you know, when adding a new sound. You know, so is it genre appropriate? Yes. Have I done the frequency character recognition? Yes. Yeah. How is it affecting the other sounds in the mix? Right. So let's have a listen to the transients of the kick with this. I think just a little bit less decay on the bass, and it worked a little bit better. It's a bit more bouncy. I really want the transients of the bass in the low frequencies to be able to hit me in a club. And because we haven't got the key of the track right yet, and we're just getting the basic ideas together, I'm not going to spend too much time looking at this, but I am going to try and get into practice these questions that I want you to learn, so that you get to the point like me where I can just listen to it, tune into the bottom end, and I will use Metric AB to isolate it, and listen to the transients and how the tail of the bass is working with the transient of the kick under 100 hertz. Okay, so I like what we've got there. I had an idea. I wanted a bit of a lead sound. So I found this sound on the DX7. I wanted to go for something like a Dubfire Roadkill sound, or something like, well, Camelfat Cola is the same as Dubfire Roadkill. Okay, I've asked all the questions, I've brought it in, I've not put any EQ on it yet. There's a little bit of low end in there that I don't really want, that's interacting with the top of the bass, because I've asked all the questions. And I I like it. Yeah. Is it a 10 out of 10 for me? No, it's not. So I'm going to spend a bit more time and look for another sound which might be slightly better. And I've already spent a bit of time. And this is the key to getting a great track. You can't settle for second best, a 7 out of 10. I need to come back to this sound. It is good enough for now. It is the right frequency. And I may have to go to the hardware to do it. But generally, I would say to you, don't move forward until you found the killer sounds. Because again, doing it will kill your flow. But I have got a keyboard player coming pretty soon. So I need to get something. And that is in the right frequency. It's not quite the right sound. I think I might be able to, there's a possibility I might be able to, use some distortion and parallel compression and lots of other things to make that sound right. But we're trying to get things in the mix. We're trying to listen to it, the position in the mix now. It's interacting with everything else. And that is going to be 90% of the mix done. So without the piano, it sounds good. It's a little lost in the piano, but I know that I'll be able to make it fit a little bit more. But when you turn it on and off with the piano, you can definitely hear it come in. And again, the piano is lead 1. This is lead 3. So it just needs to complement the piano when it's in. When it's on its own, will it carry the track as lead? Where you go, yeah, I love that sound. Right now, I'm not quite sure. Okay, it's a nice frequency. I really like it. Okay, for this sound, I've got the DX7. DX7 is like an FM synth from back in the day, and it is the synth that did the piano line for I Just Can't Get Enough. Karaya, Let Me Love You for Tonight. These are the kind of sounds you get out of this synth. Again, it's Arturia. I use this plugin all the time. And I like the sound. I've had a mess around with it, but I'm not 100%. So I'm going to look for more of a different sound or some layers to go with it. Now, right now, I haven't got any reverbs or anything. And you might be saying, oh, you need some reverbs. And you're right. I might add a little something to the piano, to give it a bit more atmosphere. The thing is that I'm trying to teach you that your mix should be 90% there without anything, loads of reverbs, delays, and compression. It's all about getting the right sound straight away. So I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to show you the difference later on. So I feel like we're missing something at the top end. I always have a string in there. Yeah, of course, I've just done a low cut on it. It sounds good. It's a great sound. The Selena is a classic old school house string machine. I feel like I'm missing something at the top end. So then I quite fancy an ARP. An ARP is a little bit overdone. Not really. You do hear them still nowadays quite a bit. Because I'm not releasing this track, I might come up with a bit of a better melody, but I've just put a basic ARP in there, which is this. I've got 2 versions of it. Like we said before, I'm going to want a busy one and a quiet one. So I've got this one first of all. And I don't want this to stick through the mix a lot. I want it to be in the background a little bit. Like in the 90s or the 80s, the ARP would have been really loud, but it's not really what you get nowadays. And I've kind of put the ARP in really just to explain to you about position of the mix and the frequencies. And when I'm choosing a new sound, where I want it to go, I've got nothing under 100 hertz. I've got the kick and the bass there, Between 100 and 200 hertz, I've got, the bass and the kick. And then the bottom of the piano, and then from the 200 hertz up to about 4K, I've got the piano. That's the main part of it. In the middle of that, I've got like the DX7 that's really coming through, around 600, 800 to 1400, which is interacting with the piano really well. And then it's just at the top end, the brightness, I'm missing something. So the ARP, for me, is great for the position in the mix. So that is ARP 1. This is ARP 2, which is a bit busier. And this is a Jupiter 8V. I've used the ARP on this. I use this plugin all the time. And all I've done is go into the advanced section and to the sequencer and just change the rate of it. And add a bit of a play around and mess around. You can draw in your own pattern if you like, and I would recommend that. I would say that this pattern that I've got here is definitely too obvious, but it works frequency-wise. So yeah, and I would have asked all the questions again. Jupiter's a 10 out of 10 sound. It's got a bit of a wow factor if that's what you're going for. Again, I'm going to sit this back in the mix. I don't want it to be too Enjoy Anthem. And I like the sound, so I might play around with it and get a bit more of a melody going with that later on. I don't know where I'm going. All I'm doing is finding sounds for the mix right now. You know, this isn't the final mix. That has got a bit of natural reverb on it. It is filling up. I quite like it. So I'll have a listen now where I'm up to. So the piano's lead 1, the bass is lead 2, the DX7's lead 3, that's lead 4. You know, the string is just a string, that's lead 8. Now I'm thinking about, okay, what can I add to that like later on in the track? You know, so it's not, what can I add to that now? Well, I don't want to be adding too many melodies because I'm remembering I've got a bit of vocal on, but maybe I could add something that just lifts it up a little bit. So then what I've done is I've got the next lead sound to work with everything else, and that is the Juno 8V by Arturia. This is a sound. And what I'll do is, and what I did do with this is, I will use the envelope, the attack, the decay, the release, the low cut, the high cut, and I will get it to sit in the mix so it's not in my face. It's just a little, oh, what's that there? Like, what is that? Oh, that's really nice. It's not meant to be a ding in your face kind of thing. I want it to be sat back, really far back in the mix. So I'll just rough ballpark get it in the mix with as much as I can with what's on the synth, before I start going to compressors and gates and reverbs and delays and everything else. So yeah, I like where that sits, and then I get the volume right. I think, okay, great. I've got all them sounds and they all work together. But what about the break? What am I going to do with the break? Well, maybe for this kind of music, I want a bit of a pad. And I've used Analog Lab, which is not like me because I generally go to one of the synths, but I was trying to get the ideas together quickly. So Analog Lab is a plugin with the Arturia V collection, which incorporates all the synths into one plugin. And then what you can do is if you go to Explore here, and you've got it there, Open Prophet 5, it'll change it to the actual plugin that it is. And then you can change the sound in here, appropriate to work in your mix. It's great for getting ideas together quickly and having loads of good presets in one place. So let's have a listen to that. So again, yes, I've just got the chord of G so that I know it all works together. And I'll choose it for the frequency in the mix of where I'm going to want it once I've got the piano player in. It's a preset called Pulse Width. All I've done is take the cutoff down and I've messed around with the attack and the release so it suits the sound, me, and what I want from this track. Let's listen to that. Okay, let's listen to that in the mix. So now I know I've got most of the elements in the track that I want. I know I've got some stuff for the break, and I know I've got an extra sound just to lift it up a little bit. I've got the bass, which on its own is a killer. I've got the DX7, which on its own is good, but could be better. I'm going to look into that when I come to mixing it. I reckon I might be able to mix this sound to sound good. But if you're just starting off and you're on the beginning journey, go and find a better sound straight away. It's got to be a 10 out of 10. And remember, you would have found these sounds before you started. I'm not producing at the moment. All I'm doing is finding sounds. I'm doing it separate to when I start producing the record. Remember, they're different. I find all my presets and all my sounds and all my samples before I start making a track. And this is a part of that with the synths and the presets and everything else. But I know that I like all them sounds in the mix, okay? I know that the mix is great from the low frequencies, from 20 hertz to 20K. It's great. Do you know what I mean? I know there's more space of reverbs and delays and hi-hats and shakers and everything else, but I'm not going to add them just yet. All I'm doing right now is making sure that when I get my keyboard player in, I've got all the sounds I need and that I like them. And because I've asked all these questions when I'm doing a new sound, you know, they're all gain staged. They've all got their own position in the mix. They sound great. The 10 out of 10s, they've got wow factor. And they all work together great. So that I know that my mix is full. You know, and it's full, you know, already. And we haven't got the vocal in there. We haven't got all the drums and the shakers and the rides and the hats are really going to glue this track together and make it feel really full. But I know that if that was the peak of a track, you know, with a few chord changes, that I wouldn't want any more sounds in there besides the vocal and the effects and the drums. So that's how to prepare for a keyboard player and how to prepare your music before you start producing a song. Get all the sounds together first of all. Of course, things are going to change along the journey. Do you know what I mean? But always get your sounds right first of all from the beginning. Because if you don't, you know, you're going to be killing creativity trying to find sounds to fit the mix. Okay, I'm listening to it and I'm thinking to myself, just could do with something airy in there a little bit without putting the reverb in yet. So what I've done is I've just got a synth up, which is Analog Lab again, and I've just used a preset here. Let's have a listen to that. And what I've done here is I've just had everything going and thought I just need something else in there. I've not listened to the sound on its own. I've not even touched it. All I've done is go through some presets and go, that works. But the thing about this sound is I don't really want you to hear it. What I want it to do is to add a layer and a texture to this sound that makes it feel bigger. And that's the key to a lot of things like this, is layering things just that when when it's in, you go, well, I can't hear it. But then when you turn it off, your track kind of collapses a little bit. So let's have a listen to that, and I'm going to turn it off as it's playing. It just kind of opens up the piano a little bit. And I really like it. Let's have a look at that, what that is actually. That's the modular. So yes, I think it works. I think it's nice. It's doing something. Don't tune into it in isolation and go, okay, you know, I don't like this sound. This is a supporting sound. We're trying to add something in there, which is a bit of a fizz up top end, but I don't want to hear it and make this too EDM. It's still a house record, but I do need them frequencies. I feel like I'm lacking them in the piano now. I've got everything in. And I don't want that to come from the drums and the hi-hats and everything else. I want to give this a texture, and I really like what that's done. And yeah, that's what I would do preparing for the keyboard player. Okay, so I've had the keyboard player in, Ross, and we've come up with our ideas. And it sounds really good. I really like it. So let's have a look at the track. So as you can see here by the different colours, from what I explained before, I've got two different kinds of pianos. Looks like I've got one for the break, and I've got another one. And I've got two different kinds of basses, one for the main part of it and one for the break. In fact, we didn't do one for the break in the end. We did one, but we didn't use it. So let's have a listen to that. And now I did add a bit of delay to the piano. I just wanted to give it a bit more, I did need a bit more of a vibe to it. So I've just added a little bit of delay very, very quickly. I've not overthought it. It's just a default. Put it on a bit on there just to give it a bit of a vibe. But they're the chords. The chord is around E, and Ross tells me that most dance records, a lot of these kind of records are just different inversions or variations of E minor. So yes, so we've done that, and I really like it. I think it sounds great. Let's listen to it with everything else. And what I'll do is I'll go through the different sections of the track so you can hear the different things and how they come in. We ended up only using, only changing the piano really. For variations, we didn't find that it needed anything else, but have a listen to this. Now I really like that, and I've still not added loads of effects to it, right? And that's because it doesn't need these effects yet. I'm not adding any compression. I've added a bit of EQ, top and tail in here and there, but that's about it. A bit of delay on the piano and a reverb on the clap, because they're the two. Well, the clap is about lead 5, to be honest with you. So I need to know that my mix is right before I start adding the rest of the stuff. And the journey in these different sections that you could hear made me feel like this is a track, this is moving me. You know, I already get the feeling that this is a great track. You know, so that's the point now where I know I've got all the parts in that I need. And remember, I will be coming back and adding more musical parts later on once I've got the vocal in, if I think it needs it. I just get the music together and get the ideas, and we would have spent like half a day on this, trying different variations of the pianos, a piano 2, a piano 3, you know, different variations of the DX7, you know, the pads were the pads for the break, they just work really well. And we tried some melodies with the arps, but I quite like the arps, to be quite honest with you. And yes, it's sounding really good. A key thing to remember as well is that I'm A being my reference tracks. You know, I've got 5 or 6 tracks here, Sonny Fodera, that I really like, and I think is the same kind of genre. Feeling the energy, feeling the, you know, how the chords, the changing in the chords, how that makes me feel, and is it a similar kind of feeling? You know, has it got the energy of it? Am I missing anything? And I'm using this just for that right now. And we're in the ballpark. I really, really like it. Okay, now before I start arranging it, I want to start adding the drums. And for me, it's really easy now to add the drums to the music. And you choose drums that work with your music better. It's always a better idea to do it this way, specifically if you're using loops, because a loop that sounds great at the beginning might not go as well with the piano or the bass or anything else. And because we're working from lead 1 downwards, you know, these drums are going to be lead 10, lead 12, so I need to make sure that they work with what we've got. So let's have a look what we've got here with the drums. Okay, so I'm using kick 3 for the kick here, which I really like. Quite clean. MK uses these kind of kicks quite a lot. I have got a variation there, which is a sample. It's a Purple Disco kick. I'm not quite sure where I'm going with this. Am I going a little bit more tool roomy with the drums, or am I going a little bit more cleaner, Sonny Fodera, pop crossover kind of thing? So I'm going to go try and go in between. So I'm torn between the 2 kicks at the moment, but we'll go back to this one. Okay, so what I've done is I've added a couple of loops in. And this is the first loop. Again, I don't want it to be too tool roomy, too slushy, to anything else. I want it to add a bit of something when there's no music in. You can hear it's only slight, but it really makes a big difference to it. And because I've added it to the music, I know that it works, the melody and the groove with everything else. And again, I've asked all the questions and I'm looking at the tuning on this to make sure it works with it as well. So I've got that loop. And then I added this loop. I just thought, you know, a lot of this kind of genre doesn't have loops in it, but I'm torn. I'm not quite sure whether I'm going to go tool roomy with this or I'm going to stay more crossover poppy. So I've just had variations in there. To go crossover pop is just nice clean drums. But yeah, I really like that. Let's have a listen to that on and off. So I've got a 16s hat in there, and I did have that in first, and then I realized it was similar frequencies to when I did the new high loop. I realized that the new high loop was kind of masking it a little bit. So maybe I need to change something in there. But then when I turned the 16s off, I realized it took something away from the track. So although they were kind of in the same frequency, when I turned one off, it took something away and I didn't like the outcome. Let's have a listen. They really work together really well. Remember, I've not EQ'd anything yet. If you look at the 16s, I will EQ this up later on. I've not touched it. That's just on there by default. So I really like what it's doing together. Sometimes, you know, the frequency recognition thing, you might go, yeah, well, it's in the same place. But when you take something out, it just takes some magic away from it. So they're the drums. I've also got a ride in later on. And then I thought, well, am I going a bit more tool roomy, or am I going, you know, that way? I'm still a bit torn, but I've got this snare to give a bit more of a vibe. Which I don't necessarily want throughout the track, but I feel that it works better with all the music in it, because it adds a little something when the music's in. Let's listen to it with all the music in. It's just adding a little something in the mid-range. I think it needs it. I really like what it's doing. If I'm going tool roomy, it's probably the right sound. If I'm going more crossovery, it might be the wrong sound. I might need something like a 909 snare or something like that. But I'm feeling it in the mix, and it's subtle. It doesn't have, not everything has to be up front. So that's it for the drums. I don't want to get too complicated on this track. It's not that kind of track. I did have a closed hat in as well. And that's just because at the beginning of the track, I won't have the open hat in there. So that's the reason why I've got that. And they're simple, but those two loops are great. Remember what I taught you about loops in the past. A loop can really be a key part of the character of your track, added to, you know, your kick, your hi-hat and your clap, that are going to be their own kind of items all the time. But what happens is people add too many loops and they get cross rhythms and they lose the track. Specifically when they do it at the beginning. Always add your loops and your extra percussion once you've got all your music in the track, and make them work with it a little bit more. Remember, your track's got to have a groove and a melody, and your groove works with the melody of your music. Okay, I've also added this. I must have thought it just needed a bit more brightness at the top end, so I've added this. It's just a little bit of white noise, side chained, filtered all the way up with an LFO tool on there. And it's adding a frequency that I think that right now it needs. What I might do is, the analog lab that's backing up the piano, I might look at that and try and get some white noise in it, because I feel like we're missing it. And I think this is just a little bit obvious. If we can get the white noise playing the rhythm of the piano, that'd be even better. So yes, that's the drums. You don't need to go all out. And I feel like I've got the basis of a track here. I think the drums are there. I think it's time to arrange it.